Hi, Conductor fans. We just want to give a heads up that this episode contains some explicit verbiage. If you have young listeners around, put in some headphones. Thank you.
Welcome back to part 2.
Hi, and welcome to Conductor, where we are two sisters on a mission to amplify women's voices on the podium.
Join us as we interview leaders in the field of choral music, share resources, and build a community for current and future teacher conductors, all while exploring the gender divide. I'm Kira Starr.
And I'm McKenna Stenson. And we are
Conductor.
Okay, so our next question, everyone. We ask everybody who comes on this podcast this question. And I preface it by saying that because it's emotional and difficult to answer for a lot of us. And McKenna and I have asked each other this question on this podcast as well. And I would offer first that I live in Florida right now. And I just had a friend come, speaking of SLP, to an SLP conference that was on my school campus. And I was so excited to host her. And
was it Pava?
It was Chloe. It was Pava. And it was Chloe.
Yeah.
Pava.
Yeah, amazing.
And it was Pava. And she was presenting. And I was like, this is such a big deal. I'm so excited for you. And she arrived and like we hung out and I was dropping her off. And she was like, you know, it's just a bummer that I have to think about how to use the bathroom in this state. And I was like, yeah. And as a cis woman, I just sat there with that for a second and was like, God, I am just so privileged to not have to ask myself that question every day. So I offer that as an introduction to this question, which is, can you share a time when maybe you have faced discrimination? It can be a particular instance, or you can talk about some microaggressions that I'm sure we have all experienced. And what suggestions do you have for our listeners, to anyone out there who might come into encounter this podcast, about how to overcome adversity?
Are you asking about discrimination for being trans, for being a Latina, or for being a woman?
You may absolutely answer for all three.
Discrimination can be intersectional. You live
Correct.
that life. You know.
Let me think about it, because I'm trying to be specific.
Yeah, that's no problem.
I don't mind starting. I am fortunate in that I grew up very privileged in terms of social privilege. We were like lower middle class, but I was a cisgender, or thought I was a cisgender heterosexual man for 27 years of my life, and lived my life accordingly. And so when I made the decision to pursue a transition of some kind, even early on, it was like I can start HRT, and because it doesn't impact the voice, like it can just be something that like I'm just doing, because like if I come out publicly, like maybe my employment opportunities wouldn't be as good. And so there was a conscious decision to try to hold on to the cis white male privilege that I had. And eventually that practice became unsustainable. And I think one of the scariest things about it was obviously stepping into the unknown and not knowing the extent of the potential negative repercussions of coming out. And I mean, I remember the first time I was pumping gas late at night and dressed as my authentic self. This was before I was even out publicly, and being afraid. And that was not something that I had ever experienced prior to that. And so it's not even just that there's one moment where like, oh, this stands out to me. It's just a general constant reminder of the potential to be unsafe. And that has been very sobering to deal with. Moving to LA helped a lot with that trepidation. But eventually I knew that I wasn't in a position to serve my students without being my authentic self. I can only advocate for the LGBT community so much when I'm read as a cishet white man. And at some point they're going to be like, oh, you don't really get it. And I'm like, get it more than you think. But when faced with that adversity, I always try to err on the side of authenticity. And 2 years ago, while studying in Southern California, there was an incident in part of an audition process that I was in where the director was using gendered language, and I had already started giving lectures on inclusive language and things like that, and what best practices are when those sorts of things happen. And best practices are to make a verbal correction, and then that person restates the sentence and moves on. Don't make a big deal out of it. Just restate it and move on. No one's attacking you as a human being. It's just a reminder to be more cognizant of your language. And I had to correct the director twice. After the second time, the director asked me to step outside and pulled me into the hallway and got in my face and yelled at me that they would not be scolded in front of their ensemble, and that I needed to extend them a little bit of grace, and that if I couldn't do that, they didn't want me in their ensemble. And now I, in an institution of higher education, was faced with the choice: do I push back and lose an opportunity to go on an international tour with my peers, friends, colleagues, and to perform in this elite quote-unquote ensemble? Or do I shut up? And I was flabbergasted that this choice had even been put in front of me, of basically be quiet and deal with it, or go somewhere else. And I didn't even know how to respond in the moment. And I went back into the audition and I'm trying to calm myself down. I feel the anxiety starting to spiral, and I know what panic attacks feel like, and I knew one was coming. And very, very long story short, I left the audition, got the support that I needed from the administrative individuals in the organization, and was able to go back into that rehearsal space so that there was not an extra musical reason for me to not be in that ensemble. It's horrifying that I had to be faced with that decision so overtly. I don't believe that individual ever fully understood the impact of that conversation on me. It still gives me anxiety to think about that interaction, and to have someone that I had looked up to telling me that I needed to worry about his delicate sensibilities before advocating for myself and my own authenticity. It was a lot, but I'm glad that I stayed in the ensemble. I never really shut up because I don't really know how to do that. But I got more strategic about how to correct. So unfortunately, part of being what I've learned after sacrificing my gender privilege was that you learn to pick and choose your battles and to get more crafty about how you advocate for yourself. And it's unfortunate, but it is a reality of our experience as women, of our experience for me, Madi, and AJ as trans individuals. And then you take into it like a whole other component of like safety of, well, if someone discovers I'm trans and they felt like I misled them, and then like I could literally get beat up because of that, or worse. Anyway, it's very sobering, and I didn't mean for this to take such a dark turn, but there is light at the end of the tunnel, and I know that it is hard to persevere when faced with these sorts of things, but lean on the people around you would be my recommendation. There are systems in place to support you if you're faced with similar circumstances, and it's also okay to not be okay, and it's okay to not have the strength to put up the fight. It's okay. If you don't have the bandwidth to toe the line and be a vocal advocate and expel the energy that requires, lean on the people in your life that you can, find the individual support for yourself, and find out what works best for you. Instead of, you don't have to carry the mantle for everybody unless you feel called to.
That was really vulnerable, and we appreciate you sharing. I don't know if Mari or AJ, if you would like to speak to this question at all.
I feel like going through the world in this identity, as far as where our career is concerned, at least just me speaking for myself, being in this career, it's literally, I feel like every day, it's like, do I keep doing this or do we switch? Do I keep and do we switch? And I know that's a bigger conversation that involves everybody else that is, that might identify as anything else. But I always think, I think of what Stevie said about putting gas in the car at night. That became very real for me as well. If I am dressed a certain way, I am not going at night anywhere alone. And I'll never forget the first time where I did try to do that, and it was just, you will never understand until you are living that experience. So everything for me comes down to safety now. Literally everything, including, do I continue this career? Because there are days where I just want to, you know what, I'm going to do this for 2 more years, and then we're going to find a cushy $100K, $150K job doing some kind of instructional design, do what I got to do in my basement, and then live my life, because this life is too short. It is too short. I don't know how old everybody is here. I'm 32. If you do the math, that's like, maybe 50 more years, maybe 60 more years. The way that I eat, Lord, I like to eat good. Okay. So, I love butter. I love seasoning, and I'm trying. Lord knows I am trying. I am going to the gym now. I am eating better. She wants to look good, but I like to eat good, and I like to live good. I'm from Puerto Rico. I like to go to the beach. Oh, I like to go to the beach and sit and be in the water and drink a margarita and drink something, like we all do, because we're human and it's just what we love to do. Or, again, let me not speak for everybody. That's just what I like to do. But yeah, it's a safety thing every day. And I every day is picking your battles. And I pick less and less and less each day. Like, is someone going to get my pronoun wrong? Girl, if I'm walking out of the house and I forgot to shave, or if I am wearing, not the right clothes and I'm not wearing it, it's going to happen. And if I stopped for every time that happened, oh my God, I would just vomit and have a heart attack and have a seizure all at the same time. So we pick our battles. Have I faced discrimination? Yes. Where do I begin? Ever since going out on stage for a state conference performance in my new identity, that was horrifying and exciting all at the same time. I got a lot of support, and at the same time, I definitely knew there were people who were probably not very happy with me, did not care in that moment. But you just never know. Does it affect my opportunities? Probably. There were people asking for me to conduct honor choirs, and then my name had been floated around, several counties, and there was one in particular. I was supposed to be conducting a certain all county, and very quickly that was not a thing anymore. This past summer, in a class, it was professor called out only the women and only the women of color, and of course the trans girl, to stay after class, because something I don't even know what happened. It was someone sent some text message during the class, and some white people got mad, and the teacher provoked this, and so I stayed for this meeting. It happens. It's gonna happen, and you just have to choose. You gotta breathe through it, walk away. It's a lot of breathing and walking away, and it's not fair. And how long can you stand that? What parameters are you setting forth for yourself? What boundaries are you setting up for yourself to make this sustainable? To make it so that you are safe. Unfortunately, that is the way that we have to do this. And I think that's all I have to say on that.
Thanks, AJ. As someone that was in the conference performance, it was just fabulous. Your students sang the heck out of their rep, and you programmed a badass set of repertoire for them to represent their authentic selves, and you modeled that. And it was just beautiful, and I cried. So, congratulations. It was exceptional.
Mari, did you want to have a chance to answer this question? And if not, that's okay also.
It's just that my mind goes to like 100 places at once, because I could talk to you about sexual violence. I could talk to you about going through the airport and not having a matching ID and almost missing my flight, being separated from my parents, being asked, interrogated for a reason I had no idea, on top of like not having matching ID, like driving. If you live in Texas, you have to drive just to do anything. One time I forgot my binder at home. A morning I had to teach voice lessons. I rushed back. I got stopped for speeding. I cried the entire time because my driver's license up until this year, I'm now 36 years old. Up until this year, my driver's license had an M on it and not an F. There's so many things. Dating. But I think the biggest thing that's most relevant to this conversation is just that we live in a patriarchy, and how that is evidence for me. When we talk about safety, right now I have a cis male partner, and I get to enjoy like people not giving me attention, unwanted attention, and like people not asking questions because we look like a cishet couple. So like I literally tell him I can't go to these places because I'm gonna not feel safe. If you go with me, I'll feel safe. Because, especially because he's white, he doesn't have to explain anything to anybody. So, those things, I did not choose him for those reasons. we choose each other, but it's just like, that's very real for me right now. And if he was not in my life, I would literally, in my daily life, have less safety. I remember being at a premiere at a festival, and I had a work being premiered, and I was walking into one of the rehearsals, and the bouncer stopped me, and I was trying to explain to them that my piece was being rehearsed and they were expecting me. And and this was at Gala, so it was like a LGBTQ choral festival. And so I couldn't go into the rehearsal. And then during the actual concert, when they performed my music, the conductor recognized me and I stood up. And, during the intermission, I excused myself to the bathroom and the bouncer apologized to me. But, maybe I just I'm too feminine, or I'm too brown, or my hair's too curly, or maybe they can tell I'm trans. I don't know what it is, but I just don't look like a composer to them. And I know if I was just another white dude in a suit, that they wouldn't gatekeep me. And that's just a metaphor for so many things. But the more I have success in my career, the less I see myself. It is lonely at the top of the mountain because when I look around, I do not see anybody remotely like me.
Oh my God. Thank you for sharing all of that, Mari. And thank you all to all three of you for sharing everything that you just did. We're just so thankful to have you here in this space, and also so thankful that you are willing to share all of these experiences with us today, and also just all of your wisdom, because we know it's exhausting.
And now, a quick word from our sponsors.
This season, we are featuring a fierce lineup of women composers found in the Music Spoke marketplace. At Music Spoke, composers receive the majority of the proceeds from sales, retain control over their own works, and all scores are available immediately as digital downloads. At Music Spoke, they do not simply publish pieces of music. They find composers and give them the tools and freedom to promote themselves. You just heard Verbo Caro Factum by Heinrich Schütz, arranged by Liza Kalisasi Maidens. Check out her works today on musicspoke.com and connecther.com/sponsors.
Hello, this is Sandra Snow, Director of Choral Programs at Michigan State University and Artistic Director of Mirabai. Mirabai is partnering with the Denver Women's Chorus to present Storytellers, a workshop unlike any conference you've been to. For the first time, leaders in choral music education will partner with members of GALA, the Gay and Lesbian Association of Choruses, to bring a workshop that blends the experiences of musical activists and classroom trailblazers. The Storytellers Conference is designed to improve your rehearsal and ensemble leadership through sessions that promote inclusive pedagogy, cultural responsiveness, and a new lens through which to view the conductor's role. Featured guests will include composer and singer Moira Smiley, and all attendees will be able to see Mirabai in concert. Session presenters will include collegiate educators from across the country and Gala chorus leaders who are working as community activists. When we come together to listen to one another's stories, we all grow. Storytellers. Listen, connect, expand. To register, see storytellersdenver.org.
Hey everyone, Gloria here from Call Time Clothing, back again to remind you to check out our newest special edition items from our collaboration with Conductor. Grab a super soft tee for yourself, A family member, a teacher, or maybe all of the above. We've truly got something for everyone. Head over to Call Time Clothing today.
Hello, everyone. Jocelyn Hagan here. I just wanted to let you know that the Compose Like a Girl podcast has officially launched. Listen as I interview celebrated composers Sarah Kirkland Snyder, Chen Yi, Dale Trombor, Angelica Negron, Rina Esmail, and more. I'm also hard at work on the next batch of scores in the Compose Like a Girl choral series, distributed by Graphite Publishing. You can help me bring these new pieces to life. I'm always seeking choral ambassadors to perform these new works by emerging composers. If you're interested, please reach out to me, Jocelyn Hagan, via my website, jocelynhagan.com, or social media. I look forward to hearing from you.
Pavon Publishing is proud to feature outstanding women composers and conductors.
Composer Judith Harrington has created a prolific choral series for youth and treble choirs that includes Fireflies from Japan and Duérmete mi corazón from Brazil.
Shirley McRae has many outstanding arrangements for young choirs, including popular songs like Black Sheep, and Sakura.
Conductor Iris Levine maintains a treble chorus series of medium to advanced works with text by poets from Teasdale to Yeats.
Other composers and authors in the Pavon family circle include Zenaida Stewart-Robles, Catherine Rundis, and Martha Wall. Explore all of these fantastic composers at Pavon Publishing. And we're back.
Just to bring us back to something really musically oriented and to just share a little bit about who you all are. These are the Fast Five. They're supposed to be fast. We find them to be pretty quick, like Stephen Colbert sort of questionnaire moments here. And we just want to hear from each of you about a couple of different things, if you're willing, and we'll speed this through. AJ, what is a favorite current choral octavo or composer who you would recommend to the people out there?
Maria Esabel Valverde.
I hope you might say that. Fabulous. AJ, what is one misconception about you?
That I'm scary.
One word to describe you as a conductor teacher.
Dynamic.
That's a really good one.
Favorite choral blooper, if you have one.
Okay. A blooper. Oh, I have a good one. We were supposed to sing at a retirement home, and I told the kids, y'all, they are just dying to hear you. And they all were like, oh, and cackled and died and laughed, and it was great. Nice.
Every time we hear these, every teacher out there is like, thank goodness I'm not the only one. And then finally, what is the favorite choral memory of yours that you're willing to share?
Oh my gosh. Has to be hands down that BMEA performance. So I don't know if anything will top that. But for those that don't have any context, we sang about the struggles of the pandemic. And like I said earlier about who I teach a lot of different identities, a lot of different backgrounds. And so for me to highlight specifically my Black women in my choir, and for them to have the choice of what they wanted to sing and to sing in solidarity with one another and to be heard by their peers and their community. And then for me to be able to be myself through all of that, nothing will ever top that.
Thank you. Beautiful. Stevie, you are up next, my friend. What is a favorite current choral octavo or composer recommendation?
I would have to say Rina Esmail. Her music is just so engaging, so rhythmic, so fun. I mean, of course, Maria Esabel Valverde, but I've been obsessed with Mari's music since I found it. But Rina is a composer that I know also really cares about inclusivity and is dedicated to allowing choir directors to apply her pieces in a variety of different ways in order to best serve their students. And yeah, Marina is amazing. Her music is amazing. Can't recommend it enough.
Love it. What is one misconception about you, Stevie?
I can sometimes be read as too intense. And that translates to people thinking I'm a jerk sometimes.
He's not.
But that, to be completely honest, is largely a byproduct of me being neurodivergent and not always picking up on particular social cues. And so I'll respond like really brash or really quickly to something, and people take it as me being aggressive when really just my brain was just vomiting the thing. People think that I can be hard to approach, but I really just want to talk to people and connect with people. I just want people to like me. So it's definitely a misconception. I don't try to be a jerk at all.
Never picked that up, Stevie.
Thank God.
What is one word, Stevie, to describe you as a teacher conductor?
Passionate.
Love it. Do you have a choral blooper that you would like to share?
Oh my God, the list is too long. Like, I feel like every time I walk into a rehearsal, it's a blooper. My whole life is a blooper reel.
That's acceptable. That's an acceptable.
Yeah, I mean, the listeners are teachers. We know, like, at some point, all of the funny moments just blur together, and there's just so many of them. They just back to back to back to back to back. But I always, part of the reason why I don't remember them really is because they just happen so frequently, and usually it's me laughing at myself. It's not so much the students, it's me creating this weird situation. I don't know. I'm just really goofy in a rehearsal, especially when I'm working with kids, whether it was when I was teaching in public schools or now with the Long Beach Youth Chorus. Like, I just get goofy, and when you're relaxed and goofy and authentic, relaxed, goofy, authentic moments happen. And yeah.
Oh, stay goofy, Stevie. Okay, last question for you is, what is a favorite choral memory?
It was forever ago. I was in undergrad, and we were doing a performance for Verdi's Requiem in Italy. And I was singing baritone at the time, and the tuba mirum, if you know the Verdi Requiem, it has like the antiphonal trumpets at the back and like the brass fanfare, like antiphonal ramp up to the tuba mirum spagent sonum. Like, it's such a powerful entrance. But I will never forget my undergraduate conductor. We were in Italy in this church, and he knew that we loved singing that entrance, and he was just really feeling it that night. And he's conducting, and the ramp up is happening, and he locks eyes with me like a measure before the baritones come in. And his cue was, bam! Like, hands clap, rear back, like he's casting a spell, and then like eyes locked with me, like stabbed me for the cue. And I will never forget it. It, like, pedagogically throw everything out the window, but I sang more tuba mirami than I've ever sang before. It was just so fun, and I tell that story all the time. But yeah, that's probably one of my favorites.
And to bring us home, Mari, we have the same questions for you. And you are also welcome to recommend yourself. But a favorite choral composer or a specific octavo that you might recommend to the listeners to think about?
I'm going to give you 3 answers.
That's our favorite. Mora's best.
Well, and I wasn't thinking of myself. I actually wasn't even thinking of an octavo because it's a big piece. It's called Vieille Prière Bouddhique by Lily Boulanger. Do y'all know it? Oh my God.
Amazing.
If I'm ever in the same room where that is happening, I'm agnostic, I'm an atheist, but I will have a spiritual experience. That's what it takes. But y'all should look up the text of that. And then I was going to say, I wanted to shout out my friend Sherry Blevins, who is a gay woman and a conductor. She's been an educator, and now she's making most of her income as a composer, an arranger, and a lyricist. And she recently wrote lyrics for me. So watch out for a piece that we're going to create together. But yes, she writes, she's openly gay. She writes a lot of choral music, and she sets a lot of her own lyrics. So there's plenty of conversations to be had when you look at what she's got out there. And for myself, specifically, I always like to shout out my piece, Our Phoenix, because it was my first collaboration with a trans poet by the name of Amir Rabia. And since 2015, when I wrote that piece, we've collaborated, I think, 5 or 6 different times. But they are a part of my team. We're a little duo. So that's the answer.
Amazing. What is one misconception about you, Mari?
That I have money. I don't have money. I'm trying to survive.
What are you doing? Why are we waiting? Let's go.
Yeah, it's being a composer. I tell this to people. Being a composer is the career of an aristocrat. I was literally told once that I just needed to marry a rich man so that I could charge less for a commission. Again, going back to the misogyny. Yeah, I don't have money. I'm struggling financially like so many Americans. And that has radicalized me. And don't invite me to your space if you don't want me to say how capitalism is terrible.
You're in the right place. And also, people now buy Mari's music even more. And commission composers. I mean, that's something that we can't get into today, but we've talked about so often on this podcast, and just encouraging people to continue helping new music come to fruition.
Start a consortium. Get with your friends.
Mari, one word to describe you as a conductor, teacher, composer.
I always tell people, this is not one word, I'm sorry.
Great.
I always tell people that the more I do this, the more I realize that my music is about unleashing. Like, music is the medium, but I think what I really want people to take away is to unlearn shame.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Mari, do you have a choral blooper?
I mean, I try to forget all of that.
Right?
When y'all asked that, the first place my mind went to was being in a context where I was coaching a choir on one of my pieces. And I told the bassist that I needed more deep.
Mm-hmm. We've all done it.
We've all done it.
We've all done it. We've all done it.
But seriously, more deep.
More deep. We'll continue to do it.
We're not wrong.
Yeah. It's going to continue to happen.
And finally, Mari, a favorite choral memory that you might share.
Oh, there's so many, y'all. There's you're talking about commissioning, and like, I just want to send a thank you to everybody who's ever commissioned me, because I literally would not have survived. That is such a great experience, or it can be. It's not always a smooth process, and I have learned along the way. So we can talk about that another day. But I love when people commission me. I've done consortiums. I've done all kinds of commissions. That's not one experience. It's like a bunch of experiences.
That's beautiful.
Thank you all so much for being here today. We just can't say enough times how much we value you, and just appreciate you being here and sharing with us and sharing with everybody who listens to this podcast about yourselves, about your work, about how to just be a better human being, and about how you got here. And please continue to just be the incredible people that you are, and know that we are here, and we will link all of your resources that you would like us to on our podcast platform. And thank you again. We just can't say it enough times. We so appreciate you coming and having these conversations with us. It's been really, really, really incredible.
Thank you for listening. This has been Conductor.
This episode was engineered and mixed by Mary Hannah Klontz, with intro and outro music by Jonathan Martin and ad music by Kate Krellin.
Discover more resources at conducther.com.